This game was played between Steinitz and Chigorin in Havana in 1892. Steinitz and Morphy are considered the founders of modern chess. Steinitz adopted a scientific approach to his study of the game. By isolating positional features of the game, Steinitz realized that all brilliant attacks resulted from a weakness in the opponent's defense. Furthermore, he outlined the idea of an attack in chess formed of the slow addition of small advantages. Steinitz refined his play and ideas to the extent that he was the first recognized world champion. In this way, Steinitz was not only a chess player of the first rank, but also a creative thinker. This is very rare amongst chess players. An illustration of his play is this game, which was the fourth game of the World Championship match against Chigorin in 1892. The game begins with positional maneuvers in the Ruy Lopez and ends with a brilliant combination by Steinitz. At this point of the Ruy Lopez, Chigorin, playing black, plays knight to f6. This is the Berlin defense of the Ruy Lopez. And Steinitz, playing white, plays d3. And possibly Steinitz plays this with d3 to avoid the simplifying line, following the kingside casting by white in the following line, returning half a move. If white castles kingside, then we could have knight takes e4, d4, knight to d6, bishop takes c6, d takes c6, d takes e5, knight to f5, queen takes d8, king takes d8, knight to c3, with the proximate equality and a probable drawn game because of the simplifications. But returning to the game itself, where Steinitz has just played d3, Chigorin then plays d6, white plays c3 and prepares to form advance d3 to d4. Chigorin then plays g6 and prepares the fianchetto of the king's bishop. White then plays knight to d2, black plays bishop to g7, Steinitz then plays knight to f1. This knight is heading for e3, where it has a command on the centre. Chigorin then castles kingside, and white plays bishop to a4. White is planning with this move to place the bishop on c2, but this move is an unforced retreat of the bishop and costs a tempo. It seems that this move, bishop to a4 in the Ruy Lopez, was fashionable at the period this game was played. The more commonly played moves now at this point, returning half a move, are bishop to g5 or knight to g3. But returning to the game itself, where Steinitz here plays bishop to a4, Chigorin then plays knight to d7. This knight is heading for c5 in order to repel the white bishop on a4. White moves this knight to the planned position on e3, and then Chigorin plays knight to c5. White retreats the bishop to c2 to avoid the exchange of a bishop for a knight, and then Chigorin plays knight to e6. But an alternative of black, returning half a move in this position, is f5, and then we have exchange e takes f5, bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, g takes f5, bishop to e3, with a slight advantage to white, who has the pair of bishops. But returning to the game itself, where at this point Chigorin plays knight to e6, Steinitz then plays h4. At this point, white has a choice either to play as Steinitz does, with h4 directly attacking the black castle king and castling queenside, or alternatively casting kingside now. Steinitz has selected the kingside pawn attack. The game is about level. Both sides have completed their development and have a balanced hold on the centre. Chigorin plays knight to e7 and intends with his knight move to play d6 to d5, but it might be better to restrain white's pawn advances at this point, returning half a move with h6, and another alternative for black at this point is to play knight to f4, and then we could have the continuation g3, knight to h5, bishop to d2, h6, bishop to b3, a5, a3, bishop to e6, knight to h2, king to h7, with approximate equality. But returning to the game itself, where at this point Chigorin has just played knight to e7, white plays h5, white continues the advance of the h-pawn. Chigorin then plays d5, black counterattacks with the pawn advance in the centre. We now have pawn exchanges on the king side with h takes g6, f takes g6, White now has control of the semi-open h-file directly opposing the black castle-king position. White has a pronounced positional advantage with well-placed pieces and a hold on the centre as well as the rook on the h-file. Both sides have still to complete their development. White now exchanges in the centre with the purpose of opening lines of attack against the black king, and then we have the following exchanges. And then White at this point plays bishop to b3. Steinitz places the bishop on the diagonal containing the black king and queen. White places the bishop directly attacking the black king, while in the previous few moves black has made no progress. Black now has increased his positional advantage. Black displaces the queen to c6 and simultaneously defends the knight on e6 with the queen. Steinitz plays queen to e2 and moves the queen to the semi-open file with the isolated black e-pawn and the black knight, which is pinned to the black king. Black develops the bishop to d7, and then White develops this bishop to e3 and only requires castle queenside to complete his development. An alternative for White here, returning for half a move, is bishop to h6, and we have exchanges of bishops, followed by king to g7 with strong advantage to White. But returning to the game itself, where White has here played bishop to e3, Black then unpins the knight on e6 by playing king to h8, and then White castles queenside to protect the king and develop the queen's rook. White has a winning positional advantage at this point, for we note that the white bishops are effectively placed with long diagonals of action. One of the white rooks is centrally placed while the other occupies the h-file attacking the black king position. The white queen is placed on a semi-open file opposite a black isolated pawn. On the other hand, the black bishops are restricted in their movements by pawns and pieces. One rook is undeveloped, and the other rook is on the semi-open f-file, but White's position on this f-file is secure. Chigorin develops this rook to e8 and protects the knight on e6 as well as the pawn on e5. Steinitz then plays queen to f1. Steinitz is preparing the pawn advance d4, and therefore the white queen is displaced from a possible attack by the black rook on e8. It is probable that Steinitz has now envisaged the combination which will terminate this game, and this is a second reason for this queen move. Nevertheless, returning half a move, a stronger move in this position appears to be the queen move, queen to d2, and we could then have the continuation, queen to d6, d4, e takes d4, queen to c2, rook to f6, knight takes d4, queen to f8, knight to f3, rook to e7, rook takes d7, temporarily sacrificing exchange, rook takes d7 with a winning position for white. For example, we can have the continuation, knight to e5, and white is threatening here the devastating knight takes g6 check. Black could then play queen to e8, and then we have knight takes d7, queen takes d7, queen to e4. White has a huge positional advantage, and the game could then continue a5, rook to d1, queen to c8, g4, g5, rook to d5, b6, rook to e5, and White's attack is irresistible. But returning to the game itself, where White in this position has just played queen to f1, Chigorin now plays a5. This is an attempt at a counter-attack against the white castle king, but White already has a winning positional advantage. White now plays d4, and we now have exchanges in the centre with e takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, and at this point Chigorin plays knight takes d4, but this capture of the rook is a mistake. Returning half a move, Black could survive for longer with the defensive move, rook to e7, which protects the pawn on h7. But returning to the game itself, where in this position Chigorin plays knight takes d4, Steinitz then plays rook takes h7 check. This is a dazzling move. White has a forced checkmate in the most 7 moves. This game illustrates that this combination is not created from a vacuum, but results from White's careful positional preparations over the entire game. Chigorin then plays king takes h7. Black has no alternative but to capture the white rook. Steinitz plays queen to h1 check. White now has a king hunt, beginning with this queen move to h1. black plays king to g7, then we have bishop to h6 check, king to f6, queen to h4 check, king to e5, queen takes d4 check. Chigorin resigns at this point, as we then have the forced continuation, king to f5, queen to f4, checkmate.